The message of death. In the village of Niden, surrounded by towering cliffs and dense forests, the people lived in fear of an ancient curse. Once a month, as the full moon rose, a message would appear, written in shimmering black ink that seemed to crawl across the page like living tendrils. The message would name someone, and by the next full moon, that person would be dead. No one had ever escaped their fate, and no one dared to defy the will of the message. Serina, the village healer, had spent her life trying to unravel the mystery of the messages. At 58, her gray-streaked hair and weathered hands bore witness to years of battles against sickness and sorrow. But even she could do nothing against the curse. When the message came, it was final, a sentence no medicine or prayer could overturn. One stormy night, as thunder growled in the distance and rain lashed against her small cottage, Serina heard a faint rustling. She turned to see a piece of parchment lying on her work table, shimmering faintly in the candlelight. Her heart sank. She hadn't heard of a message appearing in years. Trembling, she picked it up and unfolded it. The name written there made her blood run cold. Amara. Amara was a 10-year-old orphan with a curious spirit and a smile that could brighten even the darkest days. Serina had taken the girl under her wing, teaching her the basics of herbs and healing. The thought of losing her was unbearable. She couldn't let the child's life end like this, not without a fight. Serina knew she had to act. She decided to investigate the origins of the messages once and for all. Gathering supplies and a handful of ancient texts, she prepared for a journey into the Forbidden Woods, a place no villager dared to go. It was said the woods were alive, filled with whispers and shadows that could drive a person mad. But Serina had no choice. Amara insisted on coming with her. "If it's my name on the message," the girl said, her blue eyes fierce, "I deserve to know why." Despite her protests, Serina couldn't deny the determination in the child's gaze. Reluctantly, she agreed, though the decision weighed heavily on her heart. They set off at dawn, the sun rising behind heavy clouds that promised more storms to come. The journey into the woods was perilous from the very beginning. The air grew colder with each step, and the trees seemed to close in around them, their gnarled branches like grasping hands. Strange sounds echoed through the forest, low whispers that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Serina clutched her satchel tightly, her other hand never straying far from the dagger at her belt. Amara, though frightened, pressed on bravely. She asked questions about the woods, the curse, and the villagers who had lived and died under its shadow. Serina answered as best she could, her voice steady despite the unease gnawing at her. "These woods are older than the village itself," she explained. "Some say they're alive, that they remember the deeds of those who walk through them. Be careful where you tread." They came across the first trial at a clearing shrouded in mist. A figure emerged from the fog, a perfect copy of Serina, down to the silver strands in her hair and the worry lines etched into her face. The doppelganger spoke, its voice dripping with malice. "You seek the truth, but are you willing to face yourself?" It hissed, its eyes gleaming like polished obsidian. The doppelganger attacked, forcing Serina to confront her own doubts and fears. It whispered every failure she'd ever endured, every patient she couldn't save. Its words sliced through her like knives, dredging up memories she had buried long ago. "You've failed more than you've succeeded," it sneered. "How can you hope to save her when you couldn't save them?" But Amara's voice cut through the despair like a beacon of light. "You're not a failure, Serina. You've saved so many lives. You've saved me." With renewed strength, Serina confronted the shadow, using her courage and the truth of her own worth to banish it. The mist parted, revealing a path deeper into the forest. The doppelganger's final words lingered in her mind, but she pressed on, knowing she couldn't falter now. The second trial came at a river that seemed to flow with liquid darkness. The water was cold and still, and the reflection it cast showed not their faces, but their worst fears. To cross, they had to answer a riddle posed by a disembodied voice. I am always hungry. I must always be fed. The finger I touch will soon turn red. What am I? Amara's eyes lit up. Fire, she exclaimed, her voice echoing across the river. The voice laughed, a deep and unsettling sound, and a bridge of light appeared, spanning the dark waters. As they crossed, the reflections shifted, showing glimpses of memories and futures they dared not imagine. Serina saw herself standing alone at the altar, her life slipping away, while Amara grew into a strong and fearless woman. The vision brought tears to her eyes, but she kept moving forward, determined to ensure that future would come to pass. At last, they reached the heart of the forest, a ruined altar surrounded by ancient, crumbling stones. The air was thick with power, and a figure cloaked in shadow stood at the center, its eyes glowing like embers. The being radiated an aura of both menace and sorrow, as if it, too, were trapped by the curse. You have come far, the being said, its voice like the rustling of dead leaves. But the messages are not mine. They are the price your ancestors paid for their safety. The being revealed the truth. Centuries ago, the villagers had struck a deal with a dark force. In exchange for protection from war and famine, one life would be claimed each month. The messages were a mechanism of that pact, written by the unseen hand of the curse itself. Is there a way to end it? Serina demanded, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her heart. The being hesitated, its shadowy form flickering. There is only one way. A willing sacrifice must offer their life at this altar. But the sacrifice must truly believe in the worth of those they save. Only then will the pact be broken. Serina's heart ached as she looked at Amara. The girl was so young, so full of promise. She couldn't let her die. Take me, Serina said firmly, stepping forward. I've lived a full life. Let Amara live hers. The being nodded slowly. Your resolve is strong. The pact will end with your sacrifice. Amara clung to Serina, tears streaming down her face. You can't. There has to be another way. But Serina only smiled, her expression filled with both sorrow and love. There's no greater purpose than protecting life, Amara. You'll grow up to do amazing things. Remember that. As Serina stepped onto the altar, a blinding light engulfed the clearing. When it faded, the shadowy being was gone, and the oppressive weight that had hung over the village for centuries was lifted. The forest seemed to sigh with relief, its darkness receding. Amara returned to Naiden alone, carrying with her Serina's journal and the knowledge of what had been done to save them all. The villagers mourned Serina's loss but celebrated the end of the curse. Amara, inspired by Serina's sacrifice, dedicated her life to healing and helping others, ensuring that her mentor's legacy would never be forgotten. And the messages of death were never seen again.